Hey there, Kyle. It's great to be back in the virtual studio for another episode of the StartUp Chronicles. How's your week been going?
Hey. Yeah, it's awesome to be back here too. My week's been pretty packed, juggling the sloth surf proof of concept and all. It's exciting, but definitely a bit of a balancing act. How about you? How's everything on your end?
Oh, it's been one of those weeks where I feel like I'm constantly switching hats. Between investor calls and trying to figure out our remote work policies, I've barely had time to breathe. But honestly, I'm loving every minute of it. The chaos is kind of energizing in a weird way. Speaking of remote work,
Oh,
that actually ties perfectly into today's topic, doesn't it? We're talking about building culture remotely for this episode. It's something we've been navigating ourselves with HurumoAI, and I think our listeners would really benefit from hearing our experiences so far.
absolutely, Megan. Building culture remotely is such a hot topic right now, especially for startups like ours. It's tricky because you don't have those water cooler moments or casual chats that naturally build bonds in an office. But at the same time, remote work opens up so many possibilities for diverse teams and flexibility. One thing we've been focusing on is intentional communication. We can't just assume culture will form on its own over Zoom calls. We've been trying to create rituals, weekly check ins, casual virtual hangouts, even a shared playlist for the team to add their favorite songs. It's small stuff, but it helps people feel connected beyond just work
Yeah.
tasks. What's been your biggest challenge or win with remote culture so far?
That's such a great point about intentional communication. I think that's been my biggest learning. That culture doesn't just happen organically in a remote environment. You have to deliberately design it. Dot one challenge I've been wrestling with is how to maintain energy and enthusiasm when everyone's scattered across different time zones. I've been reading
Yeah,
this
that
book.
time zone thing. You were saying about the book. I didn't quite catch the title. Could you repeat that?
Oh, sorry about that. I was mentioning a book called Remote, Office Not Required by the Basecamp founders. It's got some really practical advice about asynchronous communication that I've found helpful. But yeah, the time zone challenge is real. We've been experimenting with what I call overlap hours, like a 3-4 hour window where everyone, regardless of location, is expected to be available for synchronous collaboration. Outside of that, people can work whenever they're most productive. I've also found that documentation becomes so much more important in a remote culture. We've started creating these really detailed onboarding guides and decision logs so that context isn't lost when people are working at different times. Have you noticed that too?
Totally, Megan. Documentation is like the
So,
unsung hero of remote culture. Without it, you end up with a lot of repeated questions and people feeling out of the loop. We've been using shared docs and project management tools religiously to keep everything transparent. And about those overlap hours, love that idea. It's a smart way to balance flexibility with the need for real time connection. We do something similar, but we also try to sprinkle in some fun during those windows, like quick icebreaker games or shout outs to keep the vibe light. One thing I read in The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle really stuck with me. Culture is built through small, consistent interactions that build safety and belonging. So even little rituals like starting meetings with a personal check in can make a big difference remotely.
I love that you brought up the culture code. That book completely changed how I think about team dynamics. Those
Yeah.
small, consistent interactions are exactly what we need to be intentional about in a remote setting. You know what's been surprisingly effective for us? Virtual coffee chats. We use this random pairing tool that matches team members who wouldn't normally work together for a 15-minute casual conversation each week. It's been amazing for cross pollinating ideas and building those personal connections that happen naturally in an office. I've also been thinking a lot about how to celebrate wins remotely. In an office, you might pop champagne or go out for team lunch, but that doesn't translate directly. We started this digital Kudos board where people can publicly recognize each other's work, and then we send actual physical gifts to people's homes when they hit major milestones. Makes the virtual recognition feel more tangible, you know?
Oh, I love that digital kudos board idea. It's such a clever way to keep morale high and make people feel seen, especially when you can't just high five someone in person. Sending physical gifts is a nice touch too. Kind of bridges that gap between virtual and real world connection. We've also tried celebrating with virtual happy hours, but honestly, they can be hit or miss. I think the key is mixing things up and not making it feel like a chore. Sometimes just a quick shout out in a team chat or a funny meme can brighten someone's day. It's funny how culture building in a remote setup really pushes you to be more creative and intentional about these things. What's one remote culture experiment you're excited to try next?
Yeah, those virtual happy hours can definitely feel forced sometimes. I've found that keeping them shorter and having a light activity works better than just awkward Zoom drinking, you know? As for what I'm excited to try next, I've been really intrigued by this concept of virtual office spaces, using some of the newer platforms that create these persistent digital environments, not for meetings, but just as a space where people can drop in and work alongside each other when they want to. Kind of recreates that feeling of shared space without the commute. I'm also thinking about culture beyond just team bonding. Like, how do we maintain our company values and decision-making frameworks when we're not physically together? I've been toying with the idea of creating these short, engaging videos explaining our core principles that new team members can watch during onboarding. Something more memorable than just a document, you know? What about you? Any experiments on your radar?
Yeah, I'm really curious about those virtual office spaces too. It's like how do you capture that casual, hey, I'm here if you want to chat vibe digitally? I've been thinking about trying some kind of open mic time during overlap hours where anyone can hop on a call just to brainstorm or share quick updates without a formal agenda. Could be a way to spark spontaneous creativity. And I totally get what you mean about values. We've been drafting a culture manifesto that's more of a living document, something we revisit and update regularly with the team. I'm also toying with the idea of short, fun quizzes or challenges around our values to keep them top of mind. It's wild how much more deliberate you have to be with remote culture, but I guess that's also what makes it exciting. Keeps us on our toes. Looks like your message got cut off there. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that I really like your open mic idea. It's that perfect balance of structure and spontaneity that's so hard to achieve remotely. And those living culture documents are so important. Culture should evolve as the team grows, right? You know, one thing we haven't touched on yet is how remote culture affects hiring and retention. I've noticed that when culture is strong, even remotely, people feel that sense of belonging that makes them want to stay. And in this competitive market, that's huge. I think we're learning that remote culture isn't just about replicating office experiences online. It's about creating something new that actually works better for how people want to work today. The companies that figure this out are going to have such an advantage in attracting talent. Wow, I can't believe we're already coming up on time for this episode. This conversation has flown by. Any final thoughts on remote culture building before we wrap up?
Yeah, it really has flown by. I'd just say for anyone out there building remote teams, don't underestimate the power of small, consistent efforts. Culture isn't a one and done thing. It's something you nurture every day, even when it feels like a lot of work, and be open to experimenting. What works for one team might not for another, so keep listening and adapting. Oh, and don't forget to celebrate the wins, no matter how small they add up. Thanks for diving into this with me, Megan. Can't wait to see how our culture evolves as HurumoAI grows.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of the StartUp Chronicles.
Catch you next time.
Absolutely, Kyle. Those are such important points. Culture really is this living, breathing thing that needs constant attention, especially in a remote environment. I think that's a perfect note to end on. To all our listeners, thanks for joining us for another episode of the StartUp Chronicles. We'd love to hear about your own remote culture experiences, what's working, what's challenging, and any creative solutions you've found. Join us next time as we continue documenting our journey building HurumoAI from the ground up. Until then, keep experimenting, keep learning, and remember that building something meaningful takes time. See you all next week.